which is weird. Why like it's not as popular as it is. I think it's been around for the past 20 years, but using it as an approach to solve problems is fairly kanang new. The idea of like studying systems, I think, is even predates 2000. Maybe like it's part of when the first scientists studied plants, water, etc. But I think only recently it's been applied to like things like urban planning and construction. So the very basic system sorry. A basic definition of systems is an interconnected set of elements that achieves an intended goal. So usually there's a goal in mind, and then there are different elements to help achieve that goal. So already we can like see the parallels between urban planning, construction, and systems thinking. So systems can either be natural or man-made. And then something we're all familiar with is the water cycle. So you have the different elements over here. You have the mountains, the valleys, the rivers, and the oceans. And the sort of the activity or the relationships between them is that when it gets like what do you call this? Like too hot, the water evaporates in a process called evapotranspiration. They become clouds. The more water molecules are in the clouds, the heavier they get. And then that's when it starts to rain. In the process, that's called precipitation. And then that like fills the rivers and like empties out into the oceans, etc. So that's really like basic grade school stuff. So how do we apply this kind of thinking to construction? So over here, we have a like flow chart for the BIM system for construction, the building information modeling. Your Rivet program, your ArchiCAD are considered BIM systems or building information modeling systems. So we're familiar with the architectural design process. Now we start with programming, which was our class last semester. Conceptual design, which is basically our design class, up to like detailed design. This will be probably like for your later design classes. Analysis is something that even in professional construction isn't done as much. Documentation, this is like required, at least in the Philippines. The office, I mean, in the Philippines is called the Office of the Building Official. If you're from Doha, Egypt, or like Australia, you have different building officials. And then the start of the construction process, the fabrication, and then construction logistics, delivering the materials to the site, managing the cost of deliveries, managing the cost of delays, and then finally operation and maintenance. And then when it's time to renovate or demolish the building, people would usually go back to the conceptual, the architectural plans, or if they're going to renovate with the idea to improve, they'll do a programming process again, conceptual design, etc., etc. Demolition is like the wastage, the waste part that we don't want to do. So anyway, the whole point of analyzing these systems is to realize that each of them are interconnected and affect the other. So going back to your zoning map over here, let's look at another example. Just to like really hammer in that these things are happening wherever you are, Philippines, Qatar, Australia, etc. So the roads are sort of created to facilitate the growth of new residences, migrating or natural born. And because there are new residences here, it becomes an attractive space for businesses. So like you'll start out with small shops, and the small shops become larger shops, and those shops attract even more shops. So you have like this row of commercial areas, for example, in Barangay Guadalupe. And then this increase in population also facilitates the growth of institutional areas like schools, barangay halls. Each barangay has a barangay hall. What other churches and the like sorry, institutional uses like that. So usually it starts out with population, at least from the urban planning side. That's why I really highlighted the importance of putting in population growth for each of your presentations. And if your area is experiencing a positive population growth, that means that your area is in like planning is definitely needed for your area to manage all these like people living together and to make sure that the land is used properly, because as we all know, land is limited, and once we like take that out, modify it, put a building on top of it, there are very obvious environmental impacts. And why do we care about the environment? It's not just because we want to like keep the world clean, but it's mainly because if we don't care about the environment, we're just harming ourselves in the long run, and sometimes even in the short run. Because as you see here, we're already experiencing traffic congestion, overcrowding, flooding, and of course, the recent pandemic. And because people are living together so closely, it's even more difficult to stop the spread of COVID-19 and etc. and etc. So this is how you sort of we're already doing it now. I'm sure some of you have realized it, and for those who haven't, now you know. So that's basically what systems thinking is. And then I have a couple of quizzes here, but we'll get to that later. So let me go back to modules. Okay, I'll stop recording here. Boop.